feel like they came up to us and they like wanted to put a bracelet on us and we were like, no, and like we don't want it, and they're like, no, it's free, and we're like, I don't want it, and they're like, it's free, and they basically like forced it on your wrist, and then they like were like, now pay me.
Welcome to Life Unleashed,
the podcast all about creating the best life for you and your furry best friend.
If you're a dog mom on the go, juggling life, work, and the endless joys of being a dog parent, then you're in the right place. I'm Dani.
And I'm Nick.
And together with the incredible dog mom community from Tails Up Pup, we're here to share advice, stories, and the obsession we have over the love for our dogs.
Get ready to laugh, learn, and lean on each other because life with your dog just got even more awesome.
Welcome back. If you are a person who sent me some feedback, thank you so much. We got lots of good feedback on our recent podcast where we were more just chatting. So we figured we would do something fun, chatty, and there is no outline for this at all. So we are just,
off the cuff.
Sometimes when it's like something of a topic like business related, we'll write an outline so we like at least know the things we want to cover. But you guys really liked the conversations that we had, so
we're definitely here for the feedback because
yes.
You know what, we want to put things out there that you guys like. So
if you're watching this, I'm getting large and uncomfortable, so just bear with me for the next few weeks.
I feel like you're thriving
when you're in a chair like this. Like my natural instinct is to want to do this, but like I literally can't.
Yeah, the belly's in the way.
Okay, anyways, today's topic is traveling. Nick and I have been very lucky to travel a ton in our young life. So I figured we would share our favorite travel destinations, maybe travel tips, horror stories, like anything travel related, especially now that it's summer. But I feel like by far the most related to any Tails Up Pup thing that we get are people who are traveling to a place that we've been and they like want to know our itinerary, which I am very type A. We have like minute by minute itineraries. So if you ever want an itinerary, you can definitely message me. We actually used to have a website where we like shared everything that we did, but we didn't keep up with it. So that is no longer, but I'm happy to share any information if you're traveling to a place that we've been. I will start off by saying that I did not ever travel outside of the country until Nick took me in, how old was I? 22. Probably 22.
Because right after graduation from college.
Yeah, my parents just didn't travel much. We like went to Florida a few times. But other than that, like we didn't do a bunch of traveling. Where Nick's family did a ton of traveling, both in the United States and outside of the United States.
Not a ton internationally, but definitely a lot out to the West Coast in that area.
So my first international trip was to Italy, and that is where Nick proposed. So I had to get a passport and do all those fun things, to get there. But that was our first trip, and Nick had actually been to Italy, not that too far from when we had went together.
I think I went to Italy in 2015, and you and I went in 2017.
Yeah, so you got to go 2 years apart.
Well, I loved it so much. I was like, this would be a really awesome place to like take Dani, propose, do all of that.
I was trying to think if we had any like horror stories from any of the places that we've been, and I feel like the only thing I could truly think of were two things from Italy.
Oh, really? I have another one.
Okay.
Amsterdam.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You have a horror story.
Yeah.
In Italy, when we arrived, our bags were lost. And so they ended up in Paris, and they came like the next flight. So it really wasn't a huge deal. But just, losing your luggage and not knowing when it was going to come was a little bit stressful, especially since I had never been in that situation before. And then having these like salespeople, specifically in Rome, it was really bad. They like stalked us and like chased us around and like almost followed us back to where we were
What did they
staying.
do? I feel like they came up to us and they like wanted to put a bracelet on us, and we were like, no, and like we don't want it. And they're like, no, it's free, and we're like, I don't want it. And they're like, it's free, and they basically like forced it on your wrist, and then they like were like, now pay me. And you're like, I told you I didn't want it. Leave me alone. Here it is. And they just wouldn't. They just like followed us around.
Yeah, apparently that is one of their popular scams. But like, it wasn't like I was like, yeah, give me the free thing. Like they just like harassed us, and it was terrible. And also in Paris, it was similar to that too, I feel like. But Rome was the worst.
Yeah, Paris had a lot of like, there was a lot of like street people, and like it felt like there could be pickpockets about, but I had my phone like stolen from me on a different international trip, not with Danielle, and that was a very sad thing. And when you have something like that stolen, if you knew when it happened, you would have been able to stop it, but clearly I wasn't. I was trying to pay attention to it, but someone was better than me and got it from me. So
I feel like one of the common questions we get is like, did you feel safe here or anywhere? Like, what are the safest places to travel? I feel like, in my opinion, I've never been anywhere that we felt unsafe. The most unsafe was probably Paris. And I always tell people that I just recommend not staying right near the Eiffel Tower. You can stay other places and then even like walk a few blocks in, but we stayed so close to the Eiffel Tower, and that's where all those salesmen are. And it just, I don't know, it didn't feel super safe, but we were fine.
We've pretty much mainly been to relatively big cities and like, I would say pretty touristy spots. And so like there's lots of people. So if you don't feel like, I could be kidnapped or I wouldn't be safe in those situations.
We also got married in Aruba, and that whole situation, people always are like, oh my gosh, why would you go to Aruba? But I feel like one person's bad situation shouldn't affect everyone's opinion on going there. And that kind of happens like everywhere. Bad things happen everywhere, and you just have to be mindful of your surroundings and, I don't know, aware. Keep your pockets closed and your phone might not get swiped. Have like zippered bags and things like that. Use all of these things that people have learned along the way to help you have a better experience.
Yeah, I know like my dad was one time saying like, you got to be like really careful, about all these different things traveling overseas. And I'm like, you also have to be really careful about that in a lot of U.S. cities too. I mean, you go down to Atlanta or New York or any major city in the U.S., there is crime and bad things happen. And so it's not like it's just an international thing. This happens everywhere. And in some U.S. cities, I'm sure the crime rate and things are higher.
I'm going to ask you your favorite place that you've ever been, so get your answer prepared.
Oh, I'm already ready.
Oh, wow. Well, I wanted to give a little hot take first, that traveling international seems like this super cool, amazing, like bucket list thing. And it is. But if you don't have the time, the money, the means to do it, there are so many cool things to do in the United States that are probably even drivable from where you live. Like every place just has really cool things, and we take it for granted because it's so close by. That don't feel like you have to go far and wide to see something really cool in the world, when there probably is something close to you that you can also go and see. Like for us, like I haven't been to the Smoky Mountains, and that's so close. So like there are a lot of things that we should go do that are close too.
But even things like we went to, like some of our best trips, we went to Zion National Park, and we flew to Vegas, and we stayed not like in the town of like, I think it's called Springfield, like right in Zion. We stayed a little further out, and like that trip in and of itself was under like $2,000 for like everything, the rental car, the flights, and staying, and we basically hiked the whole time.
Yeah.
And so the activities were free, and for a relatively cheap experience, we got to do so much fun stuff. Because a lot of people think that you have to save up like so much money to do some of these trips, and even some of our international trips, we went on on off season if you can help it, and went pretty budget friendly. And as long as like you're don't feel like you have to have the most luxurious room ever, which you're not going to be in hardly at all, you can get by in pretty affordable fashion.
Yeah. So that's all just to say, I mean, it's still really cool to go see other people's cultures and like, go far and wide, but there are lots of things close to that you can go and see. So since you had your answer prepared.
Well, I was going to say country-wise, I have a country, okay. Scotland, okay. Definitely.
We've been there twice.
And if I had to pick a specific place in Scotland, the Isle of Skye was so cool.
Is Scotland the only place we've been twice together?
Yeah, I think so. The only
country that we've traveled to twice?
I think so. Right?
Yeah, I think so.
It has to be.
Is there any, other than Italy, is there anywhere you've been more than once?
London. But I didn't really do London. I just went through it. So, no, I don't think so.
Yeah. So, you really like it if you went back twice.
Yeah. Edinburgh in general is like an awesome city.
So, we did Scotland twice. We did it on a part of a trip where we bopped around and saw a lot of cities. And we just went to Edinburgh in Scotland and did the city life. And that was amazing. And then we went back the most recent trip, and we took a car and drove all around Scotland. So 2 very different situations.
Yeah, the road trip was way better. You got to see so much more of the country. It was like, I don't know, it seems like it's so fast paced, but you felt like you got a lot of time in every place. Danielle had like the itinerary so perfectly booked that it never felt rushed anywhere, but we still got to see like the maximum stuff that we wanted to see.
I have two things. Hopefully I don't forget by the time I get to the second one. The first one is that I feel like a lot of people are too afraid to rent a car when they are traveling internationally. So do you have any advice for that? Or just from your experience, like, are you glad you did it? I guess you said.
Renting a car is typically pretty easy. We most of the time use like Enterprise, but I think we've used Hertz before. Like almost all these like big rental car companies in the United States have like places in these big, cities internationally. So using one of them is always pretty easy. The one thing that I will say that you need to make sure is definitely, if you don't know how to drive like a manual, make sure you know that you're getting an automatic, because one time we showed up and I thought I had checked automatic, but it was a manual, and I don't know how to drive manual. I could have figured it out, but that would have probably destroyed the transmission and it just wouldn't have been fun. So we, had to wait, and I think we ended up paying a little bit more to get the automatic. But if you're not used to, that's just a thing to watch out for. But I think it's pretty easy overall. We've never had problems. It's harder to get used to driving on the other side of the road.
Yeah, if you're going somewhere like that, that's definitely hard. And if you are going to a city, I would say park the car somewhere that can stay and walk the city, because driving the car in the city is probably going to be a nightmare. But if you know that you're going places from town to town, so like, in Italy, we went Venice, Florence, Rome. 3 major cities. We didn't need a car, but we needed to get from place to place. We just took the train. 10 out of 10 recommend.
Yeah, when you don't have to rent a car, I would say don't. But like if you think you're going to be limited by not having the car, don't let that stop you. If specifically like in Edinburgh, we had to drive in the city, we had to park the car in the city, and that was just something that, you can figure it out. We looked ahead of time, like where's going to be some good overnight parking for the 2 days that we're there. But the rest of the time, like we weren't in any major cities. And so it wasn't a big deal. I wouldn't let it stop you. But like in the Italy situation, like when they have perfect like public transportation, everything, we love to be able to walk. There's no reason to take the train from city to city, and then when you're in the city, walk, or take like the bus or train like within the city, like the subway, the tube in London.
I was trying so hard not to forget my other thing.
What was number 2, Dani? Are you serious? You don't remember?
I was trying so hard not to forget it, but I was also like talking, so now I forget.
Pregnancy,
it was about cars.
Pregnancy brain. You said you had 2 things
about renting a car.
No, I think that was the renting the car was the thing 1. I don't think it was both things about renting a car, was it?
I don't remember.
Well,
it probably was not that important, but it was because I specifically said I had 2 things, but I probably won't remember either. So we'll just carry on. So sorry. So Scotland is your favorite.
Yeah, Scotland has been my favorite place overall. I just, for some reason, like, I'm a big outdoors person. Scotland has a lot of great like outdoor stuff. I love castles and like just like all the old like, stone buildings and stuff. Scotland's full of that. So it kind of like is a 10 out of 10 for that.
The most surprising thing about Scotland to me was the food, because I don't feel like they're known for food, and we did not have a bad meal. We ate so good.
Well, one thing that like, I don't know about you guys, but we love to kind of travel through our stomachs a little bit. Like that's one of the things that we enjoy.
Love food.
We love food. And so like, we really do like love going to find a place for breakfast, finding a spot for lunch, and having a good dinner. That's one thing that we definitely budget into the trip and like is an important thing. Some people are like, oh, you could just get something super easy and cheap. And yes, you can do that. And when necessary, sometimes we do that. But we really do like going and finding like the fun local good places to eat and enjoy that quite a lot.
And Nick's dad came on that trip with us, and he was like, Dani knows how to find the good spots. So my recommendations for finding good food is TikTok, Instagram, and Yelp. So you can just search the city that you're going to or that you're in, and you'll be able to find some good things.
But sometimes you got to look ahead, because like we went to a spot in Edinburgh that we wanted, and that first night we couldn't get in.
Yeah.
So we made a reservation, went the second night. So
and it was
sometimes
so
you
worth it.
Sometimes you got to plan ahead. Okay, so I picked Scotland. Where are you picking?
Honestly, I have no idea. Like,
what?
I don't know how you can have like a favorite, because they're all so different. So maybe we can just really quickly run through all of them.
Okay. Everyone,
Okay.
every place Dani's been is her favorite.
Okay, I feel like my instinct, my gut wants to say the trip that we took right before we started Tails Up Pup, because we got to go to so many places. But I don't know truly now looking back if that was like my ultimate favorite trip, because they're all so special.
Well, yeah, the trip in general was epic because we went to 5 countries and all of that.
Yeah, we traveled around. So we flew into London. We did all of London for like 5 days or something. And I absolutely love London. If I were to move to a place, it would be Scotland or London. I just feel like Scotland or London is so like livable, and the people are friendly, but the food really wasn't that good there.
Very expensive.
It is expensive.
Everything.
It's super pretty. I love London. I would go back to London. And then I don't know if I'm going to get all the places in order that we went.
Okay, think
we
about
went from London to Scotland.
Yep.
We took the train and we did Edinburgh, and we just did that for a few days. We loved that. Then we took a plane to
Paris,
and Paris is my least favorite place that we've ever been.
Ever?
Yeah. Of all the international places.
Yeah, I think you had higher expectations. Sometimes when your expectations are really high and it doesn't meet those, you have a bad view of it.
Like, people are always like, oh, Venice is so dirty. And I'm like, no, Paris was dirty. Venice was beautiful. I loved Venice. But no, Paris was dirty. I just feel like the people weren't that nice. The food really wasn't that great. And there were some cool things to see. But other than that, I would never go back to Paris.
We just didn't have the best experience.
Yeah, I don't know how anyone could say that's like their favorite place, though.
So, I mean, if we would have stayed at some nicer places in a different location, maybe we would have felt different.
Maybe somewhere else in France.
Yeah.
Just not Paris. Then I don't remember.
Took a train from Paris to Amsterdam.
Yep. And that's where Nick's horror story is. Are we taking a pit stop in this little thing for your horror story?
We can if you want.
Okay. I do like Amsterdam. I think it's a really cool city, but Nick is traumatized.
Let me set the stage for you. We are taking a train into Amsterdam, and it's one of those like pretty fast trains, and we are like high, like having a great time. Like, we are high on adrenaline. We are traveling, all these places and just having such a great mood. We're going in probably an hour out. No, maybe less than an hour, but pretty close to getting off the train. And I'm like, I feel like I'm getting a little motion sickness. And so like I go to the bathroom. I'm like, I think I might be sick. And so go in there and nothing happened. I'm like, okay, I think I'm gonna be fine. Go back to my seat. And I'm like, no, it's coming. Run to the bathroom. And I throw up. And I'm like, oh man, I never get motion sickness. That was so weird. And go back to my seat, and I'm like, all right, hopefully I'll start feeling better soon. Because, a lot of times once you get off the train and the motion sickness will go away. So we get off the train, and I'm like, this is getting much worse. I turned pale. I'm like, I am going to puke again. I'm trying everything in my power to hold it in. We have to get on one of those, what is it, like
a bus?
No, it was like a
trolley
train,
bus.
A trolley that was like so... going back and forth or whatever.
Very wobbly.
Wobbly. And as I was everything in my power not to throw up in that thing, as soon as we got out,
I sprinted off.
I sprint off the thing. I throw up in one of the canals. It is like, I felt so bad for doing that, but it was coming out. There was nothing I could do. And then we make it back to the room, and I am like dying at this point. I am so weak. I can barely roll my suitcase.
He was shaking.
I was shaking. I got this horrible like virus.
I think it was
stomach
food poisoning.
bug or food poisoning, something. Basically for the next 24 hours, I was like on the ground hugging a toilet, and it was an absolute nightmare.
And I actually had to venture out into Amsterdam by myself. We had just arrived. I had no idea where I was going to try to find like Gatorade and soup and that type of stuff. That was scary too.
Yeah, so Danielle saved my life. I truly, that was like the sickest for a short period of time like I've ever been. I was like freezing. It was just horrible. And actually the thing that was so sad about that whole thing is it never stopped after that. Basically, after like, most people, I don't know about you, but if I throw up, I'm throwing up in a toilet, generally speaking. I threw up in the toilet, and for somehow it clogs their toilet at the place. And so that's kind of a nightmare. But that happened like maybe the last day, like when we were leaving.
Yeah, I think it was when we were leaving.
We were not there for very long. And so come to find out after we leave, like we tried to get it unclogged. We couldn't do it. And so we told the Airbnb host, and they tried to charge us like $5,000 to replace the toilet. And I basically just was like, look, they're like, this is not normal use for a toilet. It's your fault. And I said, I don't know about you guys, because Airbnb had a mediator, but I feel like throwing up in a toilet is a pretty, not the most common use, but is a normal use of a toilet. If someone gets sick, that's where they're going. And Airbnb agreed with me, and we didn't have to pay it. So that was a thing that followed us for a lot longer. And then that bug jumped onto Dani as we were about to get on the plane to fly to Copenhagen.
Yeah, I started feeling sick in the airport, and that was really sad because I was like, if I throw up in the airport, they're not going to let me travel. So I did everything in my power to hold it in, and I survived. We made it there, and I felt really bad in Copenhagen, but I recovered much faster than Nick did, and I ended up loving Copenhagen, even though I felt bad in the beginning part. I was still able to like tough it out and go see the things and do a lot of fun things in Copenhagen, and I would definitely want to go back to Copenhagen.
Those people were so nice. The river was frozen over, and people were ice skating on it. And it was just like a very beautiful country. That's the other thing about this. We went in an off-season time, so like every single accommodation was so cheap. I think we went like late January through early February, and like everything was like very, very cheap. Like it was not hard at all to find like the best locations for great prices.
However, it snowed in every single place that we went.
It did snow in every place. We had snow while we were at the Edinburgh Castle. We had snow in Paris. We had snow in all of the places.
Every single place we went, it snowed.
Yeah.
Which ended up being fun, and it didn't prevent us from doing anything that we wanted to do. But if you don't like the cold, then that might be a reason to not travel in the winter. However, it was not crowded. There were no lines, and everything was cheaper. So definitely recommend traveling in the off season if you can and would enjoy that.
Yeah, it was a pretty epic trip.
Yeah. So that's why it was one of my favorites, because we got to see and do so many things. And that was like a 21-day trip. I feel like we'll never get that again.
Probably not. And we were definitely ready to come home by the end of it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that was my other thing that I was going to say.
What?
Earlier. That when you're planning a trip internationally specifically, it costs a lot of money and or a lot of hours to get there. So can get carried away of wanting to see all these things and do all these things, and it can turn into like, oh my gosh, I'm going to need 3 months to do all the things. And it's like, realistically, that's just not going to happen. And you're going to have to know that you're going to lose things that you want to see and, gain other things that you might not have known about. And so it just is the part of life, because sometimes you're like, oh, I'm flying all the way to London, I might as well go to Scotland. So it's like, okay, can you break your trip up to do both, or is there so much you want to see in London that one day you'll just have to travel to Scotland on its own?
Yeah, we're pretty big believers in trying to pick something where you feel like you can at least give it a good go for like that specific spot. Like sometimes people end up just, darting around everywhere, and they don't actually end up getting to see very much of anything because they're moving so fast. If you're going to go, at least spend the time to see the few things that are on your list where it's impossible to see everything. But yeah, like you said, we made the decision that we wanted to see the major cities. And so we wanted to see like London, Edinburgh, Paris. And while there's so many other things, right outside of Paris or right outside of London to do, you don't feel like you have to do everything, because we're like, we want to go see the cities. And then, maybe a different trip will come back and we'll really do, outside of London, or we'll really do outside of Edinburgh. And that's what we ended up doing with our Scotland trip.
Another favorite trip that I had was obviously the Scotland one that you already talked about. So that was amazing. But Hawaii was really fun too. And we went in the off season, so it was much cheaper. And Hawaii is always beautiful. So if you go in the off season, it's still going to be warm and you can go to the beach and do all the fun things. And we island hopped, which is like literally 15 minutes in the air.
You're like literally you take off and they're like, all right, we're descending.
And yeah, I just feel like we got to see different islands, do different things. The Big Island was by far our favorite. If I were to go back, I would for sure go to the Big Island.
We did the Big Island, Maui, and Oahu.
Yeah, Maui was my least favorite. It was just super touristy and expensive. And then Oahu, we didn't stay there long enough to say like if we loved it or not, but we did Pearl Harbor. But the Big Island has so many things to do, and if you're like adventurous and outdoorsy, then you'll absolutely love it.
Yeah, we definitely, I feel like, don't have a trip on the horizons anytime soon, but that's because the baby's coming.
Yeah, but I am not one to say like I'm not traveling because of my baby. Like I think that we would just bring the baby with us, and we should still get to do the things we want to do, and they can experience it too, but everything's expensive. So we just don't have anything planned right now, but I think that we will end up traveling with our kid.
No, I mean, I would love to. And I think it's a really good thing if you can to like expose your kids to that, because if you expose them to that when they're young, they will, I think, come to love traveling.
Hopefully.
You never know. I mean, and I'm really a homebody most of the time, but
yeah, we're homebodies, but we love to travel.
yes. It's always, you have to get out of your comfort zone. There's never a time where I'm like going to an airport where I'm like, I love this. I'm excited to get there and all the stuff to do. But, you know, that's just the price you have to pay to go see the stuff.
Another question we get a lot is about where we stay. And I feel like we really split it equally between Airbnb and a hotel. And it really depends on where we are, what we want out of it, and what's available and the cost. So we just look at our options before.
Sometimes Airbnbs are like the best bang for your buck in the right location. It's very location based. We want to be able to walk to the stuff if possible. So that is like the first thing that we're looking for. And then obviously something that's affordable for our budget.
Well,
and
when we rented the car, we were like, okay, we need a place with a parking space. So like that was one of the priorities, where when we don't have a car, we would rather be like right in the city to walk to everything.
Right. But we still were able to find both. We find parking spaces that we could also walk.
And where are you going to eat? So like, you know, is there a kitchen there? Are you going to the grocery store? Are you going to be able to walk to the restaurants? Do you have to get on a bus and go somewhere? All that stuff is good to keep in mind.
That is one hack for like the busier trips that we've done. We a lot of times will go to the grocery store and we will plan to cook breakfast in at an Airbnb. We do that quite often because that way we can get up early, we can cook, eat, and get out the door and start the day. Sometimes we're not always going and sitting down and having a big old breakfast because we have a lot that we want to do.
We are people who eat 3 meals a day. So I don't know how people make it and they're like, yeah, I don't need breakfast. Like, we need food.
We are having a breakfast.
Yeah. So that is important to us. And like in London, we stayed in a hotel and we ended up just getting breakfast in the hotel every day, and I feel like that does get more expensive. So if we would have stayed in an Airbnb, we could have saved money by cooking, but that breakfast is one of our favorites that we still talk about to this day.
Yeah, that omelets every day.
The reason that we have got the chance, we have had the chance to travel as young human beings, it's because we had a mentality of you can either travel now or when you're older. And when you're older, you're most likely to be like limited by what you can do, because we like hiking and walking and doing a lot of things. And literally we do so much and then we knock out and sleep and we wake it up and do it again. And so it just would be very different if we waited till we were older. So we were like, now or later. And you know, you have to pick and choose from your budget and the money that you have, how you spend it. And so like, instead of going out and like, you know, doing things in our everyday life, we are more of homebodies. So while like some people we know will go out every single weekend, we would choose to save our money instead of going out all the time.
I feel like on average we probably like eat out maybe once a month.
Yeah.
Right now, sometimes less than that even. It just depends. So, and like we're cooking all our meals, you know, all of that stuff. And if you do that over the course of a year, you can save a ridiculous amount of money. Also, if you do drink and you give up drinking and you're not buying alcohol, that is,
you save a lot of money.
It'll be unbelievable to you how much money you save doing that.
And then kind of Nick was mentioning this earlier, but having the ability to travel in a flexible manner will allow you to, you know, have cheaper flights or cheaper stays, and going in an off season can save you like over
thousands
double. Yeah.
of dollars.
And you have to think, if you don't have kids yet, that your ability to do whatever you want is now. And if you want to have kids, it will change. And so like I was saying, like we're planning to travel with our kid and we'll continue living the life we want. However, we do know that it's still never going to be the same. And, you know, you're going to have to fit in naps, or like now you have to feed a kid, which might be different than like going to the restaurants that we liked going to. There's just like a lot of things you have to factor in the reality of it. So we wanted to do a good chunk of traveling before we had kids, which is why also we haven't had a kid yet. So
another thing that's crazy, like a very relevant thing about the off season, we literally are looking at like beach houses for next summer. And if you look at the off-season price versus like the main peak summertime, it is less than half price.
Yeah, but who goes to the beach in the winter?
No, it wasn't the winter. It was like September.
Okay, that's because it's hurricane season.
Well, even early May.
Also,
I think through mid-May.
That is something to say, though. Be aware of what weather is like where you're traveling to, because like in Scotland, they have a lot of rain. So if you do not like to be outside in the rain, then think about what kind of things you would want to do. And just places have different weather. So that's good to keep in mind.
Yeah, we have been very lucky that we've kind of had our schedules because we didn't have a kid in school, we never had to sync that up. So we were always like, okay, when are they back in school? And when they're back in school, less people are traveling in general. And so that really made it easier for us to go on some of those times where I think that's why it's off season. So it's cheaper.
Yeah, we were traveling with like all the old retired people when we had nothing to do, you know, no kids.
And we did make that conscious choice of like, we're going to use some of our savings to do this because we'd prefer to do it now. And that's just the decision we made.
Yep. And I'm glad that we did that.
It was worth it.
Okay, well, I said Paris was my least favorite. What was your least favorite?
Least favorite? I don't think there's any. That's kind of a thing that's surprising. I don't think there's anywhere that we've been that I'm like, I didn't like it. What?
Paris?
I liked Paris more than you did, quite a bit more.
Nick has been to Alaska, Croatia. What other places?
Croatia was awesome. Argentina.
Mm-hmm.
Argentina was a really cool place. A lot of states, a lot of national parks. Like my family, we would always go to national parks growing up. So I've definitely not been to all of them, but been to a lot of the ones out west, doing a lot of hiking trips. And so that's been really cool.
We've actually dabbled in if we would ever enjoy like having an RV or like driving around and traveling the United States. And personally, I don't think that I would really see myself doing that, because I would rather fly there and then like experience like one specific place. Because when you have to drive somewhere that's far, then you spend so much time like getting there.
Well, in Scotland, the driving was never a problem because we got to see a lot of cool stuff, and they were never really, really long drives. Yeah. But like the United States is so big, and if you're spending like, you know, hours and hours and hours in the car just to get out there, like, and how much stuff are you really seeing in kind of the Midwestern states? I feel like they're very flat. And I don't know, maybe there's awesome stuff to see there. So if you live there, I'm not knocking your states. I'm ignorant. I don't know. The other thing that's really cool about traveling is you get a lot of like, at least I do. I get a lot of excitement in the thinking about it, talking about it, planning phase. And then just like once it's all booked, like the waiting and anticipation phase. And actually, I think there's a lot of studies out there that talk about like this is a common phenomenon. People almost enjoy that part of it more than when they're already there.
Really?
And yes, because how many times have you been in this situation, or at least heard someone say something like this, where you're at the beach, or just pick whatever your travel destination, you walk out on the balcony, or you walk outside and you can't, or near the end of the trip, and say, I can't wait to do this again next year, or come back to this place again next year. And a lot of times we're saying that as soon as we've like landed or are there. You're like already thinking about the future trips. So it's hard to stay sometimes in the present. And I think it just shows that like a lot of the joy comes in like the anticipation of something. And like that really is like what dopamine is. It's like the kind of anticipation. People think it's like the pleasure molecule, but it's really like the anticipation molecule driving you to go get more of whatever. And so knowing that you're going to have this trip people really like that. And I've heard some people have a hack of like they'll book trips, a few of them out in front of them because they get the most enjoyment knowing, even if you haven't booked it yet, just the planning part of it and knowing that, okay, in 3 years, this is where I'm going and I've planned my trip, that people get a lot of joy out of that.
I've actually heard that cruises probably pawn on people because of that phenomenon, because like when you're on the cruise, they get you with booking the next one.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's really the idea, because you're there. I think it's kind of like you're there, you're enjoying it. Like, this is really cool, but like, you're like, and then I got to do it again. I want to have this experience again, because you know that it's already your cruise is only a week long, or your trip's only a short amount of time. You're like, I can't wait to come back here. But the thing is, you've not even experienced everything yet.
Yeah.
So I've noticed myself feeling that way. I probably got as much joy. This is crazy. And like talking to Dani, talking to my dad, like, and just like the deep reading and planning about the places that we have been going than the actual trip themselves, which is really weird.
Yeah, people think that I plan the trip, but you actually spend so much time planning the trips as well.
I do.
And it's funny because we have done Scotland twice, and that was our most recent trip of driving around, and him and his dad already are talking about going back to Scotland.
Yeah.
And I'm like, guys, there's other places that we could go.
But sometimes, like, it's when you find a place that you really love and you resonate with, you're like, I already know everything that we missed, like, and could not do in Scotland before. So it's like, I have already, like, know that I love the country. I want to go do the things that we missed, I still feel like there's a lot that I want to do there.
Well, that was another thing of like talking about planning for weather and such, is we went to where the puffin capital of the world, probably not actually, but it is known for puffins, but it was not puffin o'clock when we were there. So
there was no puffins to be had.
There were no puffins to be seen. And so that was quite devastating. And the guy was like, yeah, they're only in like these 2 months or something. So if you really care about something, make sure that it is the time that you are going to be there.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes you have to be willing to do a lot of the extra logistical planning too. That's not always the most fun, sexy part of it, because what? That's not the most fun part of planning a trip. It's like we went to the Orkney Islands, and there was a lot of like logistical planning we had to do to, where are we going to park the car? What ferry are we going to get on? Are we going to meet a guide there, rent a car there? How are we going to do it? Are we going to take our car on a ferry? And one of our ferries got canceled, so we had to have a different booking. So there's just a lot of crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, expect the unexpected when traveling too, because not everything is going to go to plan for sure. And so you're going to have to bend a little, go with the flow a little. And also, like I said, we plan our itinerary like back to back to back, but then sometimes we're in a place where like, oh, we didn't know about this. We want to do that, but we don't have time. So you might have to lose something to gain something, and you have to pick and choose what you're going to end up getting.
But that's the nice thing. If you've done your homework and really kind of studied your itinerary, then you feel like you're making an informed decision on what you're doing. If you're like, I want to stay here longer and skip the other thing, then you're like, it's because I'm in this place. I'm pretty sure that I'm going to enjoy this more than what I had coming up next. But Danielle did a remarkably good job of estimating. I would always give yourself more time, generally, estimating the amount of time that we'd want to stay at places.
Thank you very much.
There was never a time that I felt like I wanted to be at a location longer. Every time that we were kind of finished, it was like either right at time to go or a little early. And I was like, I feel like there's nothing else here that I am going to see because I've done it all. I've spent the time that I want to. And you're going to be different than Dani and I in the stuff that you enjoy doing.
Most people would not enjoy our itinerary because it's too filled. If you like to sit and have a drink or just like chill for a second, we are not your travel companions.
But we had the chill time built in there.
Yeah, but
our lunches and things like that.
Yeah, but I think most people probably enjoy a little bit more chill.
Yeah. Well, we're like pretty high energy and we like to go.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like we're also not the type of, like, we're not party people. So we're not looking for like a city that has we're not going for the nightlife, for instance. So like if that's you, then pick a place where you can, build it around the nightlife, things like that. We're typically to bed relatively early and we're up pretty early and going.
So in Aruba, We stayed at an all-inclusive, and at the time we did drink. So I feel like we were very happy with our experience staying at an all-inclusive. But if we were to travel to a place like that now, I don't know if we would choose it or not. It does make things easier, and like there's lots of food, and like there's still many perks that we would get out of it. But sometimes it's like kind of sucks to think like, oh, I'm paying for alcohol that I'm not drinking. But they also have like events and things. So all-inclusives are really nice. And when you think of like we're going for a honeymoon or something, or even just like a beach vacation like Aruba, if you want to go and just like hang on the beach, you definitely can. But sometimes like Nick will get bored doing that. So in Aruba, there were other things like we could go on excursions, we could go snorkeling, we could go in the ATVs, we can do other things.
And a lot of places that we've gone, like if we're bored, we'll go on like runs. There's many cities that we've gone and exercised in. That's been really fun.
Yeah, but that's not the same. Like I'm talking about like things to do. Like in the Bahamas, people think Bahamas beach, but we were able to do other things in the Bahamas as well.
Yes. And I know we talked about renting cars earlier, but sometimes it may be, and we're really not the type of people that do this that often, but sometimes doing like an excursion, like we went to Cinque Terre and we booked like a bus to take us there, and it was like semi-guided. That was actually better than I think if we would have taken a car there and tried to do it ourselves.
For sure.
It was also better to have a guided trip around the Orkney Islands. We enjoyed that quite a lot.
Yeah.
So sometimes,
lots of options.
yeah, sometimes those things are better, and sometimes they can be cheaper. I think it was cheaper to do that bus trip to Cinque Terre than it would have been to rent the car, and certainly way less headaches.
I feel like you would never pick a beach trip over like something else.
I don't like trips where that I'm just sitting a lot. I get bored pretty quick.
Like
I like
if I
to
was
be
like,
doing.
I want to go to the Bahamas, would you say yes, or would you be like, maybe somewhere else?
I don't know. I think if we're gonna
If we hadn't been there.
yeah, if we're spending that type of money, probably somewhere else.
Yeah. See.
But sometimes when you're coming off like a really busy thing, like I do enjoy. We typically do a beach trip every year. I do enjoy like 4 days,
Yeah,
5
I'm just
days
talking
at the
about
beach.
like a travel destination.
Yeah, not quite as much.
You typically wouldn't pick a beach.
No.
Yeah. I don't know if I would either though. Like I do enjoy those ones though, but we've done those ones with other people. Like that's more fun with family and stuff.
Yeah.
But the two of us, I don't think we'd ever like choose that.
The other thing too that I don't love crowds, and sometimes when you're traveling, quite often that's impossible to avoid them. But other things, like that's why a lot of times I prefer to do like excursions on our own, because you're not like, when you do it with a group of people, you're putting yourself in a crowd. Mm-hmm. So there's some balancing there. Pros and cons.
Well, that is the gist of our traveling life up until our 30s. So
we've been so fortunate to be able to do so much, but I think it's been very intentional. We've certainly sacrificed things to be able to do it. That's for sure.
if you have any specific questions about a place or like how to do something or like even booking flights, like send us a message, because we love helping people travel.
Is being a travel agent a thing anymore?
Can you
really?
hire me for your next travel needs?
I really think that would be a super fun job if like that was a common thing. I know it used to be common before like the internet was so big, but I don't know if
plenty
there's
of people
still
hire
doing
those.
that.
Yeah.
Still?
Yeah.
Really?
For sure.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Fact
Probably
check.
not someone who's like 20. They're going to just do it themselves, but someone who's like 40 probably would.
My dad and my mom, like they have really, my dad, he's like relies on me, even if he's doing his own thing to
Exactly.
like,
So
to
if he
help
didn't have
him.
you, he'd hire someone.
No, he gets like my mom to like throw things together for him, but she doesn't like to do it that much either. It is very complex, and if you know how to use like the internet and you kind of have your system down, you can plan like truly once in a lifetime type trips on a good budget and just have the best time ever. And it's like, did a professional put this together, or was it Dani?
Maybe we gave you guys a little oomph to book your next trip or look forward to something to do in the future, or pick a travel destination.
And if you're on the fence, don't, go into debt to travel, but like if you're on the fence and you're like, I don't know if it's going to be worth it. And like, obviously like all of our hard earned money, like you really want to be careful how you spend it. Traveling we've never regretted a dollar that we spent doing that.
We always choose experience over things. And so like Nick and I have basically never given each other like a Christmas gift or anything.
Yeah, we literally don't give each other gifts really.
Which really pisses people off for some reason.
We're like, let's go to Italy. Let's go somewhere else.
We save our money to go and experience something together rather than get something. And that's what brings us joy. So it works for us and we really enjoy it. And I hope that y'all will take something from this and find a new place that you love, or maybe go back somewhere and experience it in a different way.
Traveling is literally what you make it. So everybody has their own thing.
Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.